Hey there! Did you know that goddess culture was the first religion? If we're going to examine women's progress over the last 200 years, we need to begin by closely examining women's progress before. This first chapter of my book explores the book called When God Was a Woman, and it was written in 1976, and it was part of a wave of feminist theology. The person who wrote it, her name is Merlin Stone. She is a sculptor and historian, and she was alive from 1931 to 2011. Anyway, in her book, When God Was a Woman, Stone wrote a feminist analysis of prehistoric and ancient cultures where the female deity was revered as the primary divine force. And in her book, we learn that women were in charge for millennia until men desired their lands and conquered their matrilineal cultures. Men used war as their tool, so men and the women they influenced suppressed the goddess religion so the male heirs could dominate. Over many generations, patriarchal societies vilified goddess worship by castigating women and degrading women's character as less trustworthy. They designed stories that would reduce women's power and make sure women were there to serve the men, much like the story about Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden in Genesis 1 through 5, where foolish Eve took a bite from the apple and ruined it for everyone. The book, When God Was a Woman, explains how these stories were crafted over millennia and later forced upon society as the main narrative so the patriarchy could rule. For example, conquerors and colonizers promoted acting in the name of their male god because their male deity spoke to them as justification for their actions of rape, murder, and slavery. But how long did it take for Christianity to eclipse goddess worship? It took thousands of years, and Christianity is the most recent mainstream iteration of a sun god or a mother-son origin story of birth, death, and rebirth. When God Was a Woman by Merlin Stone is fascinating, and I highly encourage you to read it thoroughly to understand the nuanced history. And I intend to read vignettes of each chapter of my book, We Aren't Going Back, A History of Women's Social Progress Over 200 Years. So I'll see you in the next video for part 2. Okay, see you soon.